Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the harmful effects of SPF on coral. My name is Gloria, this is Lakin, this is Stephanie, and this is Asia. And to begin, we're going to start with showing a short video. There is no sound, but basically it's a time lapse of the coral dying and then a comparison of before and after. It's kind of sad, but yeah, you can see how there's a lot of life at first, and then as the coral dies, the other fish and stuff, they aren't around as much. But yeah, so then there's a comparison of the before and after. Okay, so to begin, I kind of want to go over coral bleaching and what it is. I know we've talked about it before in class, but just in case anyone doesn't remember. So coral has a symbiotic relationship with algae, and what that means is that it's its primary food source, and it also is what gives it its color. So when coral becomes stressed due to many reasons, as you can see on the side of the picture, it kind of rejects that algae, and that's when it loses its color and it's left to bleach. And coral bleaching isn't what kills the algae, but it does leave it vulnerable to diseases and to starvation. And if conditions don't get better, then that's when it actually dies. And obviously there's a lot of reasons why coral can become stressed, but we decided to focus on sunscreen because it's the one factor that humans can deal with immediately simply by making a choice in the store. Okay, so let's see. So the ones in light blue are the most common chemicals in sunscreen that are harmful to the coral. And then the one in dark blue is not found in sunscreen, but it's still really harmful. So it's found in soaps, laundry detergents, and other stuff like that. But today I'm going to be focusing on oxybenzone because not only does it cause coral bleaching, such as all the other ones, but it also disrupts the DNA in juvenile coral and causes deformalities, and since it is an endocrine disruptor, it makes it difficult for them to reproduce. So each year there's less and less coral spawning, and leaving it so that there aren't as many juvenile corals left.
Honolulu Bay and its damage. Honolulu Bay is a marine embayment formed along the southeast coast of Oahu. This bay is the most sought-out snorkeling beach on the island and possibly in Hawaii itself, and therefore suffers from a great amount of coral bleaching from SPF sunscreens and harsh chemicals. In just a short 4-month period, this ecosystem was 47% bleached, and 10% of the corals were killed from 2015 to 2016. And in that same amount of time, 90% of coral reefs on the main island of Hawaii were bleached, and over 50% of some of the areas were completely dead. Studies done in the bay. Scientists began to do studies on the bay, testing 4 different quadrants and measuring the temperature every 15 minutes. They found that the biggest areas affected by bleaching were from where the currents and waves were strongest and circulated most often, containing the harsher chemicals. The patterns of coral bleaching in the 4 sectors of the bay are linked to localized heating due to circulation patterns. Incoming currents show a great reduction in flow velocity as oceanic water flows over the reef boundary and into the shallow and sandier areas. So all in all, this main idea that we're stating here is that where the currents are harsher and more regular is where we are seeing those corals being the most affected. So in this diagram here, we can see that the red represents live, the white represents bleached, the yellow represents the pale, and the black represents the dead. Image A is January of 2016, and image B is October of 2015. So you can see that in just a short amount of time, how much this reef has been affected just due to this chart. The next slide that I have represented is these statistics. The statistics we have here are not updated, and I could not find any that were very recent, but just by looking at this chart, it goes all the way back from 1960 and 1975. If this was a problem back then you can only imagine the problem that it is now, and we need to stop using SPFs and harsh chemicals on our reefs.
So I'm going to be talking about the most impacted locations in reference to coral reefs and the products, especially sunscreens, that are damaging. The most popular destinations are affected the most, obviously because tourists wear a lot of sunscreen and it is really saturated with the products. So the ones listed, I have the U.S. Virgin Islands, Hawaii, Key West, Florida, Bonaire, Palau, and Mexican vacation spots. So a lot of these places are working to pass laws as well as make strict guidelines as to what tourists can wear and locals, sunscreen-wise, and any product that's going to kill coral reefs and cause bleaching. So U.S. Virgin Islands is one of the first to act, as well as Palau with 2020, Hawaii in 2021, as well as Bonaire, and Mexican vacation spots. They were kind of ahead of the game because they started a long time ago insisting that tourists do use reef-safe products because it is very saturated with tourists there. So Key West, Florida, I have a quote from one of the people that are working with this, and they're saying that there's thousands of sunscreens out there, but we have one reef. So insisting and really making it prominent that this is an issue and that it is a small step to take, but something that is in the works. And then Bonaire, they said that about 90% of the reefs in the Caribbean have disappeared since 1980. So there's some numbers there to once again show the significance. Palau is actually the first country to enact the ban, where they're saying it's a $1,000 fine if you are wearing sunscreen that will bleach reefs. So that is something that's really progressive in this issue.
So I'm going to be talking about the solutions to prevent harm for coral reefs. As Gloria mentioned earlier, it's important to be informed of the harmful ingredients such as oxybenzone. It's also strongly recommended to look at the active ingredients on the product. Brands like Manda, Goddess Garden, and Sintegrity are 100% reef safe compared to other brands which do contain harmful chemicals such as banana boat, Coppertone, Neutrogena, and here's some ways where you could help. Using sunscreen and other products that are environmental friendly, educating yourself and others about the effects of harsh chemicals, wearing protective clothing so you can minimize your sunscreen use, volunteering for reef cleanups, report dumping or illegal activities, become a leader and a spokesperson.
So in conclusion, SPF contains harmful chemicals, most specifically oxybenzone, that harm coral reefs by disrupting coral reproduction and DNA. This is what causes bleaching. Corals are really easily stressed, which is why the slight changes in pH and salinity or temperature are really dangerous and super detrimental to coral colonies. So heavily vacation areas are the most affected, as stated before, and it's just important to be educated on how you can help. And overall, just use coral safe and reef safe sunscreens and products. Thank you so much.